From Where to Eternity. One of my favorite episodes of The Sopranos, where we see several sides of this world these characters inhabit. There's violence, there's comedy, there's family drama, and there's trauma. What more could you want? My name is Ricky DaCosta, and I'm a construction worker at the Esplanade Project, and I have a sick obsession with this show. There have been periods where I've watched and rewatched this show over and over, day after day, for years now. I have no qualifications other than a bachelor's degree in not psychology, and I wrote a script last night to collect my thoughts. With a script writing program and everything. I thought the computer would do most of the work, but anyway. After Chris goes complete batterer, smacks Adriana around, shoves Adriana's mother, emotionlessly love bombs and proposes to her.
What? I mean it, Adriana. I love you. I want to marry you. Got your ring and everything.
Aww. And in spite of all that, gets a yes. Then his friends Maddie Bevilacqua and what's-his-face go to pay Chris a visit, because they don't see themselves moving up at all in that world. And they literally just start shooting him. Because they think Richie hates him, etc. Little do they know that, well, for one, Richie's only reservation on a man beating his niece is a ring.
I ever hear you raise your hands to my niece again, next time you won't see my face. You want to raise your hands, you give her your last name, then it's none of my fucking business. Until then, keep your hands in your pockets. It's a good kid.
But also that Richie didn't want the heat.
Sean is fucking dead. Christopher killed him.
What the fuck are you doing here?
We did it for you as a favor.
Fuck are you talking about?
He hit your niece. You gotta hide me. I'm with you now.
Get out of here, you dumb fuck!
But I digress. The show is very good at, in a way, normalizing itself. Because even when Chris hits Adriana, like all the time, the fact that he nearly gets murdered somehow does remind the audience of the weight that he pulls in this show, despite being pretty irredeemable as a person. Also, credit due to Michael Imperioli for writing one of, if not several, of the show's best episodes, namely this one. With Chris in the hospital and Adriana inconsolable, everyone's trying their best to support. Eventually, Carmela learns from Gabriella Dante that Ralphie Ritaldo has had an illegitimate child with his Gumar, which brings Carmela back to Tony's cheating habits and makes her fear for the same thing happening with Tony.
Did you hear about Ralphie Ritaldo?
What about him?
The Brazilian he keeps on the side?
Yeah?
She had a baby.
And Christopher's in a hospital. This is on your mind now?
Tony gives his usual spiel.
Maybe it has to do with the CK1 stinking up your shirt last Wednesday night.
It's over, months ago.
Yeah, right.
And their arguing introduces the second major conflict in the episode.
Listen, Tony, if you're going to keep doing what you do, then at the very least I want you to get a vasectomy.
You want me to do what?
And Carmela can tolerate the open secrets that being a mob wife often comes with, but a bastard child would damage the image of the Soprano family unit inside and out. And Tony, without fail, says the dumbest fucking thing he can possibly say.
Hey, I had her tested for AIDS.
Instead of continuing this hilarious conversation, Carmela leaves. Not just because of how absurd the statement was, but also because in the moments where Tony is actually honest like this, every lie leading up to that moment hits like a ton of bricks. And it shows how lying is Tony's first tongue in every sense. Which is part of my assertion here, right? I'm not saying that this is Tony's worst period, but definitely one of his most revealing in the eyes of the audience. So, Christopher's heart stops and he goes under the knife. The family is distraught. Things aren't good. Carmela prays for the Lord to spare him. The surgery succeeds, with him having been technically dead for about a minute, in which time gets to see Italian Hell, which is an Irish bar where the Italians always lose at dice, and get their shit kicked in each night by the Irish. This episode opens up the Sopranos universe to the paranormal. Thus begins Paulie's obsession with the undead, which Tony doesn't suffer from, as Tony is an atheist through and through. His lip service to the church, and even his naming hell to Dr. Melfi, to me, read as nothing more than parts of the story Tony tells himself to delude himself into thinking he's a conventional guy. So he goes to Melfi's office and complains about what? His wife wanting him to get a vasectomy.
All right, so I cheat. I used to cheat. I'm not getting spayed. End of subject.
You brought up the vasectomy. Now you don't want to talk about it.
You asked me what was going on.
It's interesting he didn't even bring up Chris. I'm not even saying this is because of his narcissism or his petty nature. My guess is that it's a little too close to business. But it's just funny that instead of talking about his injured nephew, he came to continue his argument with Carmela, this time with his therapist as his stand-in. Getting back to religion, we come back to the contradictory stories that Tony tells himself. On one hand, he says Chris's vision was a morphine-induced fever dream, despite him being dead for a minute, which I'm no doctor, but it's a long time to be dead and come back from. When Melfi asks if Tony thinks Chris is going to hell, instead of his earlier assertion that there isn't one, he says,
No, he's not the type that deserves hell.
one of the great things about this scene is how it illustrates how so much of Tony's logic and self-assessment is filtered through a series of narratives he tells himself. In particular, his idea that there's no heaven and hell, and even if there was one, he wouldn't go there because he's a soldier, and soldiers don't go to hell, and the Italians who run a crime syndicate in New Jersey are soldiers because their grandparents who were poor Italian immigrants were soldiers, blah, 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 blah. It really shows the moral relativism and the amount of narrative building one has to do in order to justify their actions, but also to stay sane. Tony needs this narrative reflected back to him, or else his entire psychological construction falls apart. Tony will literally go insane and become unstable if he stops drinking his own Kool-Aid.
Oh, you got it.
I told you, Tony, no.
I mean, what the fuck am I? A toxic person or something?
Melfi, quite astutely I might add, calls this out directly.
That might all be true. But what do poor Italian immigrants have to do with you? And what happens every morning you step out of bed?
And his reaction to this kind of tells you everything you need to know.
What the fuck is this all of a sudden?
I'm just asking a question.
Oh, so you're taking a stand here now?
This mirror being held up to him starts to begin Tony's descent into revealing more acutely the repugnant, childish, and hypocritical parts of his personality. He's no longer hearing what he wants to hear, and he gets more aggressive and dysregulated. He will also play the victim as it suits him here, by, for the first time in this session, bringing up the fact that Christopher is in the hospital.
After all this time, telling me that nothing's my fault because of poor parenting. You pick now to act like Betsy fucking Ross. When my nephew's in a fucking hospital, he might not get out.
This is my lover's prayer.
Carmela then goes to visit Chris at the hospital, and is exposed to another one of Tony's lies, but this time indirectly.
So what did he say to you?
Who?
Jesus.
I didn't see Jesus.
Tony said that you saw Jesus smiling and he took you to see your father in heaven, and then he said it wasn't your time.
I was in hell, Carmela.
You what?
Carmela then arrives home and keeps her mouth shut about this to not add more stress to the atmosphere in the house.
So what, we're not talking now?
Tony starts taking it as the silent treatment rather than what it is, picking her battles.
I said what I have to say, Tony. If you can't be honest with me, at least have the balls to be honest with yourself.
And then we go back to the previous argument about Tony not wanting his balls cut.
Oh, I got balls. And as long as I do, they will remain intact. If you don't have faith in me, it's up to you.
You gotta prove it to yourself first, Tony. Yourself and God.
If Tony had a dog, he'd be one of those guys that doesn't get his dog neutered and posts on Facebook about it. So things keep heating up as AJ comes into the kitchen, and then Carmela gets a decent one-liner in there and commits the worst sin of all, being honest with Tony.
Well, whatever's down here, it's God's creation. Isn't it a sin to undo the good work he's done?
Well, you should know. You made a living of it.
You're unfucking believable, you know that?
Instead of changing gears and telling AJ to get a bucket and a mop, he continues his argument with Carmela, but instead used him as an emotional punching bag, and says probably the most fucked up line he says in the entire series.
Look what I made that living for. What the fuck you doing? You had dinner an hour ago. What the fuck are you doing to yourself?
Tony, leave him alone.
I'm supposed to get a vasectomy when this is my male heir? Look at him.
What you gonna do tonight?
Tony, come back here and apologize!
When you need my loving arms to hold tight.
This is a key hinge point of the show for me, because I think at this point you ultimately have to decide whether or not you can keep excusing Tony's bad behavior. or at least even consider him a watchable protagonist. Of course, the murders that he's committed directly and indirectly tend to distance the audience from him. It doesn't seem to be enough to turn them away. But when seeing and witnessing him in his role as a parent, seeing how petty, insecure, and just vile he can be to the people that he's supposed to care the most about, it really does a lot to distance you from caring about what he does and what he says and what he thinks. After Paulie serves up a hilarious assault on the ghosts of the people he's murdered,
Fucking quiz!
Tony's atheism and Paulie's belief get pitted up against one another. Not in terms of morality, as Paulie's solution to it is,
I should have been covered by my donations.
but strictly in terms of theology, as Tony doesn't fear or believe in anything he can't see, and Paulie is terrified of everything he can't see. Tony then has a scene with AJ that genuinely brings me to tears sometimes, but illustrates the most troubling and consistent theme in The Sopranos: backsliding. Every minor improvement, every notable win, every maybe earnest apology.
I'm sorry for talking to you the way I did.
It's okay.
No, it's not. I couldn't ask for a better son, AJ. And I mean that.
Doesn't hold up to Tony's delusion, impulsiveness, and his own worst behavior. Now, you might think I'm taking Tony's apology at face value, but trust me, I'm not. Especially the more times that I watch it, it seems to ring a lot to me like how Chris was love-bombing Adriana to try and get her to marry him, and etc. And I think my point is that even if you're taking the apology at face value, it's still not good enough. It doesn't matter. Sure, it might be even more pernicious if it's just a performance that Tony is putting on to, have a big gesture to win back the affection of somebody that he needs supply from, but, even if it's not, it's bad enough. One thing this show does a great job of as well is creating situations where it's hard to fully write Tony off until season 6. When I was first writing this script, I said, in the apology scene, Tony gives what feels like an earnest apology, a peace offering, and some presents, or at least a minute and a half of it, because as soon as he finishes speaking to AJ, he gets called away because they found Matt, and Tony wants to make sure he gets to kill him himself. You can see where his priorities lie here, right? Also, keep in mind, this was something that Tony was explicitly told that he didn't need to do himself. When he had the choice between killing a 23-year-old and spending time with his son, he chose the life. People say the scene where Tony kills O'Reilly is the scene where Tony loses the audience. But I think that this kill, even though it's expected because of the rules of the mob and because he wants revenge against Matthew for unsuccessfully attempting to end his nephew, the beating him to a pulp, the uncanny show he puts on, and the sadistic charm he's weaponizing seconds before emptying his entire clip into him, not to mention making his last moments as awful and as terrifying as possible.
You finished? The last fucking drink you're ever gonna have.
Oh, God, Mommy! Mommy, please, Tony, please!
Reveals the sociopathic edge he hadn't truly brought out in kind of a while. I think the bits that left the worst taste in my mouth were the dragging of Matthew to the snack bar, the way Tony talked to him leading up to his murder, and the way that, after all of that had happened, he was jovial at dinner with Pussy, recalling his first kill as a nostalgic moment of his coming up, and the telling the rich man, poor man joke with Matt's body kind of echoing through your head. In addition, Tony seemed to be almost incapable of not calling Matt a kid every time he mentioned him, save for one that I can remember. Tony is a sick, sick person with a sophisticated set of rules, policies, and narratives that keep him stable so he can justify his criminality, infidelity, hypocrisy, and overall toxicity. Now, I'm going to be coming out with a part 2 soon on the episode after this, season 2, episode 10. I don't remember what the title is, but the point is that these 2 episodes connect a lot, and which is why I wanted to split this video into 2 parts, because a lot of the themes that get explored here get continued on there. So if you like this channel, subscribe. I'm going to be making more videos like this so I can I don't know. I just don't have anybody to talk to about this, so I'm going to keep doing it if you guys are interested. All right. Peace out.